to infinity and beyond.
What's up, everyone? It's Roger and James here from the DisKingdom Gaming Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be sharing our thoughts on episode 4 of the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Telltale game, which just came out last week on all the different devices and stuff. Quick side note, they've also announced some new pop vinyls for this game as well, which was kind of an interesting thing, but Gamora does have a kind of unique look to the game. And also we have Rocket's girlfriend. But anyway, back to episode 4. My initial impressions, just finished it last night. I thought this was a very strong episode. It was very much, I think the fact that it was kind of self-contained in some ways on, being on that planet, taking on the worm and all the rest of it, made it feel a little bit more of, you had a story, they dealt with it, and they got out of it. Kind of was quite nice, because I think the last one was so open. It was, you definitely felt like this episode didn't really need to be. You could have gone straight to episode 5 in the story and it wouldn't have made any difference. But it was a solid one. Decisions-wise, went all over the place. But what did you think initially?
Going into it, I knew it was the Drax-focused episode, and thus far their interpretation of Drax has not been my favorite. We've talked about this in previous episodes. So going into it, I was definitely a little trepidatious, worried about it. The Drax stuff going into his history, that panned out about the way I expected it. I wasn't. It's not a great departure from anything we've gotten before, except for the fact that obviously he's not human in either the movie or this, but he is in the comics, or he was human, so it's slightly different, but not much. So, give or take. But the other stuff, the stuff with the actual team, was much better. It was an improvement over last time. I felt like the choices had a little bit more weight. And by the end of it, you're definitely feeling like, oh man, these guys are in so much trouble. How are they going to fix this in the last episode? So,
the whole Drax flashback, it actually felt like the shortest flashback of all of them, because it was literally that thing with his daughter, and that was it.
Yeah.
Obviously,
which I appreciated, honestly, because like I said, I wasn't all that interested.
No,
in it, so.
I thought like the whole thing with the worm with the pets. I was one of the 9% that was like, no, kick the bloody thing out. It's like, there's hundreds of attacking you. This thing's gonna grow up. It's just like, so Bowie will remember that. Well, he's like, we're shooting all your brothers and sisters, but that's fine.
I'll make choices.
Yeah, there was one scene where we were being chased by the big worm while Star-Lord was on the ship, and I could not get the timing right on. I had to move the circle up. I must have had to done that scene about 6 times, at which point there was no skip. I had to keep listening to the same bit, and that was the. Normally I missed the odd trigger here and there, and I've had to redo it, but I've never had in the game where I've had to do that, and that was really getting annoying at that point where I kept missing it.
That's not so much a problem with this game as a problem with the Telltale formula in general. If you play enough of these games, you'll find episodes 1, 2, maybe 3 generally pretty easy, very lenient with the button presses, and then episode 4 or the penultimate episode, because some of them go to 6, tends to be like this major ramp up where you have to have hair trigger timing, and it gets frustrating. It happened in Batman. It happened in The Wolf Among Us. Those are the only 2 I've really made it to the ending. So I can't speak to the rest. But I noticed it in both of those. I noticed it here. I expect episode 5 is going to be even worse in that regard. That's just part of the system. This is them injecting artificial difficulty into it, which is unnecessary.
Yeah, I had my first major glitch of the game, where Groot caught on fire because I saved Drax, and Groot then literally for the rest of the entire episode, I had a head, hands, and feet. There was no torso, right?
Well, it burned away.
Yeah, but he's literally just it's hovering. It's hovering in the air. So Star-Lord I get Star-Lord to hug him, and he's just literally just like this. But it stayed for the entire episode. It was just like, I'm like, man, that is a major. It's like literally, he's got no body. This is his head. It's like, I am Groot. I did love the fact of when Groot was. I don't know if you had where he was like intoxicated from the flowers. He got a bit drunk because depends if you followed. Because I followed Gamora rather than Rocket down the tunnel.
Yeah, see, I followed Rocket because
Yeah.
Rocket tends to be my favorite character. I don't remember Groot getting drunk, but I think I was also kind of losing the story at that point
he sort
too.
of sat
So
there and they drop into some toxins. So there was a couple of different things. I mean, killing off Nebula, that was a bit of a. I mean, I'm thinking, well, they're going to have to reboot her at some point to get her back by the end of the episode because you can't leave a major character dead in a video game.
I mean, they killed Thanos in the first episode, so.
Yeah.
For anybody who's paying attention, even the slightest bit, them killing Thanos is, oh yeah, there's going to be a reset button by the end of this.
Well, the fact that we're chasing an Infinity Gorge to reboot everybody,
right? Yeah.
You know, it's pretty much says that. I thought the fact that how the team, my team literally was just me and Gamora standing there at the end because everyone had left. It was a bit like okay, but. I mean, I thought like the music and stuff was good. Just generally, I thought that was a really good episode. I'd almost say, I don't know if it's my first or second favorite episode of the season. It felt a lot better.
I really liked episode 2, the Rocket episode, not just because it was Rocket, but I remember enjoying the stuff with the Nova Corps and the Hala coming in and just kicking some butt. And but yeah, it was a good episode. Definitely an improvement on 3. It gets me pretty excited for the final episode coming out whenever the final episode comes out. So
I'm guessing that's going to be December, maybe January.
That's probably a fair bet.
I mean, I would be happy with that. I'm genuinely, like I said, coming into this Telltale series completely fresh. I think episode 1, I probably should really replay it because at that time I was kind of getting to grips with how the system worked. But I also now felt like with episode 4, there seemed to be a lot of triple choices in the vocabulary, which was a lot better. I know when I was flicking back between my choices at the end, between that and my previous ones, and it looked a little bit more skew-if. There was a little bit more. It wasn't quite 91. There was a little bit more choices of what people did. Whether or not that was feedback from the one, I mean, I imagine a lot of this was done way beforehand, but it definitely felt a much tighter episode.
I mean, given that most of the voice actors probably completed all of their lines before the first episode even released, I'm assuming that all this is plotted out. And that's another hallmark of the Telltale series. It's one I kind of wish they would do away with. I would wish there were more important choices early on. But I also understand why there's not, because, if you do a lot of triple choices or quadruple choices in the first episode, there's so many branching paths that you have to account for by the end. Whereas if you do it in episode 4, where, you get 3 options, you only have to account for it in the final episode. So it's easier for them to, map it out and make sure that they've got enough content for each different branching path. But I agree with you. It's much better to have more choices, and it helps segment how the gamers, choose, and you see yourself, differing from the norm more often.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt like in general, I think it was a much. I mean, as Star-Lord, you had a fewer options when you were talking. It wasn't quite such being, just a good guy and a doofus. He had that third option, which kind of often I felt made more sense of where it was. It was somewhere in between, but no, I genuinely, as a whole, I was. I'll be honest, it kind of dropped this last week. Obviously being on vacation for a week, and it was a bit like I eventually got round to playing it. I think because of Star Wars beta and Marvel Heroes, it was like I thought, well, I'll leave that to the end of the week. And I was like, and also it took me. It's certainly quite a longer episode. I'm sure it took me a good well over 2 hours to go through this one.
Well, I mean, some of that's also simply repeating parts that you can't get past. But yeah, it did feel longer, which is odd because normally these episodes do get shorter as time goes on. So We'll see what happens with episode 5. Maybe we'll get a full 2 hours out of it, and that'll bring the running total up to what, like 8 or 9.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. It's brought my feeling for the whole series has kind of come up a bit, I think, because of this episode, and I think that's just quite good because it's going to be. It's that odd thing. If you actually took all episode 5s and you played them all in, like, if they released it all at once, and they released it, and that was it, and it was all in one, you wouldn't quite get this breakdown of the way that it comes in. I mean, you should, in some ways, it's like doing reviews. It's like, well, you really should wait till it's like you wouldn't just play one level of a video game and go, right, that's it. But in some ways, this episode content does keep everyone on the same page.
It does, and I think it's a more fun experience getting it episodically rather than getting it all as one package. I've gotten a couple of these games like after they fully released. Like I got Game of Thrones when it fully released, and by the time I got done with episode 2, I was kind of like, I need to take a break from this. So putting it into chunks, and then I never got back to it. Putting it into chunks helps, not break up the flow, and it gives it that television quality, same bat channel, same bat time kind of thing. Although they need a more consistent release schedule if they're going to do that.
Well, I mean, you said back when this game came out, they can be late and they can be a lot of them. I haven't really felt as bad on this. This game seems to be a little bit, while they haven't been like every 2 months. This game came out, what was it, April, May, and we're 4 or 5 months on, and we've had 4 episodes. It's not been as bad as you said it could be.
Right. I think there was a big gap between episode 1 and episode 2, if I remember correctly, and then it kind of evened out. 3 and 4 came much more rapidly. I expect 5 will be probably by the end of the year. The main thing, of course, is that some of the other games that they've released, such as Batman, have come out much more frequently. So there definitely seems to be like an A team and a B team working on these. Walking Dead is another example. Obviously, it's their flagship title. Although it's probably not the best title anymore. Batman is probably, but it's very variable. And other than that gap between 1 and 2, it's actually worked out pretty well for us.
No, I think it's been good. But we'd love to know your thoughts on the Guardians of the Galaxy Episode 4 if you have played it, and if you haven't jumped into the Telltale series, well, why not? On that note, guys, you can get James. Where can they find you?
You can find me heroiclegacy.com.
And you can find us over at DisKingdom.com, and you can subscribe on all the different audio platforms. You can also watch us on YouTube, VidMe, and also Twitch. You find us on all the different platforms, so be sure to follow whichever one you are on. And on that note, guys, thank you very much for watching. See you guys soon. Laters. Bye.
Later.